Question Time from the Edo Diaspora, reaching out to all Edos across the diaspora, Italy, Belgium, Ireland, and the USA, hosted by yours truly, Lace My Man. In the best interest of Edo State, welcome to Question Time from the Edo Diaspora. Wherever you are in the diaspora, we'll bring it to you on Question Time. These are active members of Vote, professionals with experience in Edo State politics. We have a common interest, so it's time for that conversation in the best interest of Edo State.
So as you find you just in a passenger, need someone like a passenger, treat them all like a passenger. No, we say you're a passenger, so find you just in a passenger, treat someone like a passenger, treat them all like a passenger. No, we say you're a passenger.
Edo and Delta State, as we know it today, would never have had such good foundations if not for two men, two great men, Dr. Samuel Ogbemudia and Professor Ambrose Alli. Election is before us again, and with me today is Mr. Ayo Ali, son of the great Professor Ambrose Alli. Good evening, Mr. Ayo Ali.
Good evening, Liz. Thank you for having me.
Election in Edo State is here again. What's going on in your mind?
Thank you, Liz. That's a very interesting question. Indeed, the people of Edo State will soon have the right to exercise their democratic choices and vote. And I guess as a Democrat, the main thing going on in my mind is that we should have a free, fair election where the people's lives and property are safe. And where a fair result that reflects the will of the people is what emerges.
Mr. Ayo, I have to ask you, I'm going somewhere. Are you in touch with Edo State?
Yeah, indeed I am. I visit Benin and Ekpoma particularly quite frequently. And over the last few years, I have sought, with my brothers and my sisters, we have sought to deal with some of our father's outstanding issues around his property in Edo State. So yeah, I go back quite a bit. I know, I'm privileged to know a substantial number of people and influential people and politicians in the state, and I keep in touch.
You would say you have been current all the time with happenings in Edo State?
Well, yes, one stays current. I have my kinsman. I work in Nigeria in social media and in football, so I keep in touch with people in the state and Nigeria very regularly.
After your father was governor 33 years ago, successive governors in Edo State have not performed. Period. I don't want to be very nice with the words, But I think one part, is it because they have, from your side, is it because they have an unwillingness to perform, or your father's shoes were too big?
Well, that's an interesting question. Without getting personal, I would say that my father, who died in 1989, would be extremely disappointed in his successors for a variety of reasons. And I don't think it's fair to say that no administration in Edo State performed nothing.
I want it to just be...
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. I don't think it's fair to say that, but, any objective assessment must say that they have mainly performed woefully. And, you have to ask what value for money the people of Edo State, the taxpayers of Edo State, get from their governments. But, as for whether my father's shoes are too big to fill, or were too big to fill, I don't know. It's not exactly rocket science, governance.
To serve the people.
It's not exactly rocket science. Well, governance, is it about serving the people? Is it about serving politics? Is it about serving yourself? Is it a combination of all of those things? What has perhaps been lacking, again, this is just subjective, is perhaps a vision for the state. My father in 4 years concentrated on 5 fundamental things, but mainly poured resources into education. In fact, the somewhat controversial derivation of oil revenue was about funding his school building program, was about funding not just building schools, but they had a plan from primary, secondary, and tertiary, including university at the pinnacle, teacher training, and that's what they did. They had a plan and they put it into effect.
We're sitting down here. We're in London.
Indeed, we are.
You grew up in Bendel State.
I grew up in Benin City. Yeah, indeed, Awolowo, GRA. I also went to boarding school in Kano and in Duani in what is now Ondo State. Actually, it might be Ekiti, but Ondo, Ekiti.
What do you remember most
About what?
growing up
in Nigeria? Well, it was a very different place from what it is now. It was the best times of our life and sometimes the worst times of our life.
Young as you may be at that time, you knew your father was governor.
I was young. I was 10 when my father became governor in 1979. I think I should also say that I was the child, I was his son who went campaigning with him. I was the one who would sit down at his feet. I remember distinctly. After they had gone campaigning and would come back, I sat down in meetings he had with Obafemi Awolowo, with Shagari, with a lot of people.
We're trying to find out what happened, why the whole Forward dynasty started after he left.
Well, I'm not sure I can speak of his state of mind per se,
Yeah.
but I think his values were very much one about responsibility and discipline. If you're a leader, you have a responsibility to deliver stuff to your people. If you're a politician, and I think it's important to say that he was a politician, he was also a professor of medicine and he studied agriculture before that. And if you're a politician, it's about presenting a program to the people. It's about communication and convincing the people to vote for you. What people must remember is my father won elections, but he was involved in politics from when he was a student. He was a member of the Constituent Assembly, and him and his colleagues wrote the 1979 Constitution. So he was not politically naive. His values really were one about discipline as a leader serving his people, but also I think the other thing is very important for us to kind of bear in mind. He also believed it was possible. So to build 1,000 schools in 4 years, you have to actually believe you can do it. So my father always said that it is, and always thought and taught us that it is possible for you to achieve what you dream of. And it's every idea, social media, digital cameras, mobile phones, all started out as ideas of men who are no better than you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's look at. Say I'm always talking about post your father because it's a defining time. It's like you never know what you have until you lose it. Your father's interaction with the people that actually went out to build these 1,000 schools, was he like an internal dictator, or they saw his vision and they were inspired to go?
My father was no dictator in any way.
A hard line.
No, let's say from what I remember, because I remember the transition very clearly as well. So the election was won, and then there was a transition. I remember him mostly because he was hardly ever at home from that period onwards. So in the 3 months or whatever it was, I believe at that time, they basically put their program on to, they put the blueprint and said, this is the blueprint. As a leader in a democratic dispensation, and it's important to say that he was a Democrat, you build a team, and give people responsibility to deliver. So as the chief executive, you can only monitor what people that you have entrusted, appointed into positions of responsibility with targets. You can only monitor what they do to deliver the targets.
There was not much of what we're seeing today, that people were not monitored or people were not inspired to go and do that.
No, the problem has never been laws about monitoring or this, that, or the other. I mean, my father would not get a job for his younger brother in government because there's a conflict of interest. My father would not, if you approached my father and said, "Oh, I'm your brother's friend," then that would automatically disqualify you from delivery. Because he always. I mean, the one big controversy was when my grandfather died and was given a state burial. I remember distinctly Dad having an argument with Benson Alegbe, who was the Speaker of the House of Assembly at that time, and a group of assemblymen, and say, "No, I don't want a state funeral for my father. Please keep your money, it's a private thing." And they voted for a state funeral. Now, of course, it's politics, so propaganda and press and spinning and so on and so forth comes into things. My father's a very honest, upright person, and those are the values he taught us. So as to his state of mind, I mean, clearly he was ambitious, but I don't think that he felt he did anything particularly special.
Would you say he was feeling like he didn't have time to complete what he set out for Bendo State?
Well, like any politician and any office holder who wins an election to hold office, what you want after a first term is a second term. He did stand as a candidate for the UPN again, and he stood against Dr. Samuel Ogwumudie. And, the history of what happened in that election is known and apparent for everyone to see. But that is the nature of Nigerian politics.
Question time from the Edo diaspora, reaching out to all Edos across the diaspora. Question Time has teamed up with Edo Connect to bring you a regular news summary from Edo State and Edos in diaspora. On Edo Connect, we got fashion blogger Emil Saboye. We got Monique Igbe live from Edo State with the mood on ground. Why not get your voice heard by recording a video message on your phone and sending it to Edo Connect?
I'm Dr. Edmund Ediosage. I am a consultant gynecologist and medical director at Cheshire Fertility Center. Cheshire Fertility Center is a contemporary fertility, assisted conception, and specialist gynecology service provider. We provide the very best and full scope of fertility treatment services, including IVF and specialist gynecology services for fibroids, endometriosis, and repeated miscarriages. Our experts are leaders in the field of fertility and women's health with over 30 years' experience that has provided them with detailed understanding of the sensitive cultural needs of African and Asian clients. Cheshire Fertility Center is based in London, Macclesfield, and other locations around the UK. We guarantee prompt, efficient, and cost-effective service with no waiting lists. You can get to see our experts within a week of your inquiry. Come and see us at Cheshire Fertility Center, where we expand horizons and fulfill dreams.
Since your father left power, since he passed, Bendo State has been split into Edo and Delta State. Have you had any contact from the governments of either state? Have you had any contact from them?
Well, we haven't had contact from them. We have been in contact with them. Emmanuel Uduagha, who is the past governor of Delta State, was my father's student, was Dad's student. Dad taught him to become a doctor. And yes, I have had contact with Mr. Oshiomole, the current and soon-to-be ex-governor of Edo State. about the matters of my father's property and so on and so forth, and his legal status within Nigeria.
This is a personal question. Have you had any benefits from such sort of pension? Sort of things that other governors, because it's just natural.
Well, let me be explicit that my mother, who is the only person who would be entitled to any pension my father had coming, has not received one penny from the Edo State government, the Delta State government, the Bendel State government, or indeed the federal government of Nigeria. In fact, when our father was arrested, incarcerated, tried, cashiered, whatever you want to call it, he had all his property seized, all his bank accounts frozen. My mother also had her bank accounts frozen and had to flee Nigeria. Had to borrow money from a friend to buy a plane ticket to leave Nigeria as exile because she was followed by now the DSS, but then the NSO during the Buhari dictatorship. No, we have not received any compensation. Our property is still seized. The only property that we actually own, which I would say that the Oshiomole administration did issue us a COO, is our father's compound, our father's land, our ancestral compound in Ekoma.
Now, because you've had contact with both governments, just explain to us. You have asked, or you have not asked?
I have written to Mr. Oshiomole 4 times regarding the matter of my father's property. My father had property in Lagos, which he was allocated as a state governor. He had property in Abuja, which they were all allocated as state governors. He had property in Ephraim, which he bought before he became governor. He had property in GRA, which he bought before he became governor from Waziri Ibrahim, from the state and under Waziri Ibrahim. All of these property, except our property in Ekoma, which I'm sure my kinsman would have something to say if anyone tried to take our property in Ekoma. All of those are still seized, and no word, compensation, anything from any government in Nigeria has ever been forthcoming. And despite writing to the Edo State, and I think I would say, despite writing to Mr. Oshiomole 4 times, we have not yet received a response.
I don't want to. I understand. I wouldn't say anything about that just because of the nature of what we're in now. But did you write to successive governors before Oshiomole?
No. We have a somewhat complex relationship with the Igbinedions. And I did not personally. I did not feel that it would be appropriate to approach the Lucky Igbinedion administration about this matter. Simply because you should be careful about whom you associate with. We do not speak to indeed recognize the authority of military regimes and military governments, so they had no business in writing to them whatsoever. So
this is the first time you've actually asked any government in Edo State?
Indeed.
Has the similar conversation taken place because did your father have any property in the now Delta State?
Well, yes, Ephraim is in Delta State. Yes, a similar conversation did take place with Governor Uduagha, and Governor Uduagha rightly pointed out that it's the responsibility of Edo State, not the responsibility of Delta State.
Do you feel your father's legacy is being respected at all, not say respected enough?
That's an interesting and quite a difficult question to answer. My father's greatest legacy are the people to whom he gave opportunities and their achievements. They're his greatest legacy. So the millions of people who have benefited from, the free education he provided, and also benefited from the schools and institutions he built. That's perhaps his greatest legacy. His biggest political legacy, of course, is the derivation of oil revenue. He established that in the constitutional order and the legal order in Nigeria. In terms of, I think, so let's unbundle the question from legacy, because that's his legacy. In terms of respect or, acknowledgement, no, I don't think my father has been acknowledged by the... my father is a convicted felon in the judicial record of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Till date?
Till today. So, why don't you ask the question whether he has been recognized? You asked the question about the Igbinedion administration. I mean, the Igbinedion administration changed the name of Edo State University to Ambrose Alli University in recognition of my father. We thank them for that. Thank you very much. But, my father does not have a road named after him in Abuja, for instance. My father has no public acknowledgement in Nigeria. Every 4 years, when there's an election, they play a political football with his name and, I'm following in the footsteps of Ambrose Alli. Well, in actuality, from what I can see, no, you're not, and no, you haven't. So it's an interesting question to ask, and you must remember I have a particularly subjective point of view as well. Every child idolizes their father, so it's perhaps not a question I can answer.
No, you are no different from most children, and I can respect your point of view. But since 1983 till 2016, I did some maths. It's 33 years where every government and I researched this, have made reference to your father with regards to what they're coming to do for the people. Have they contacted you before playing that?
You asked that, and I said no, they haven't.
Even before they start saying
no, they haven't. I mean, a standard for good governance is also one of his legacies as well. The ironic thing is that and that is institutions. The people of Nigeria, the people of our state, the people of our tribe, the people of our town, they love my father. They respect us. So, I have I am privileged. I can walk around Ekoma freely. Nobody will disturb me. I can walk around Benin. Nobody stones me with pure water. No. So
when people see you, do they recognize you? And
some people do. Some people say I do Abiyoibo, but that gets as it be. But some people do recognize us. It just depends.
What do they? If I saw you, even when I saw you, I had to shake you with two hands. And we would have danced, because I'm one of your father's legacy. Because
indeed,
I benefited from going to free school.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there are others. Tony Elemelu was in the first set of Ambrose Alli University. Chris Oyakilome as well. I mean, so there are many people who have benefited from his legacy. I even believe Aisha Buhari went to Ambrose Alli University. So. For some course or the other. So, many people have benefited. His legacies they're many. I mean, it's, the first non-federal university in Nigeria was a part of his legacy. Because he had to also remember my father was could be quite confrontational with the federal government. He had to sue the federal government for the right to establish a university. He had to sue the federal government to get the derivation of oil revenue. So
there's history somewhere where we're not, because there was no social media means of communication and all that, we didn't know any of this was going on.
Oh yeah, perhaps.
Okay. People at home are not going to be happy if I call you Ayo, so I would do myself a service and say I feel good, Mr. Ayo Ali. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Question time. Reaching out to all Edos across the diaspora.
So as you find yourself in a passenger, need someone like a